Welcome back. KZN Police Commissioner Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi's three-day testimony at the Madlanga Commission of Inquiry revealed the extent of the rot in SA's criminal justice system, from alleged political interference to links between criminal syndicates and officials in the top echelons of SAPS. Some of the names emerging in his testimony included Shadrack Sibia, Dumsani Khumalo, Feroz Khan, as well as Nathi Mthethwa. Let's get some insights and perspective on the testimony with security strategist and former Interpol ambassador Andy Mashaile, who had been following the proceedings closely. Ntate Mashaile, a very good morning to you, and thank you so much for joining us today. So I know you have been following those proceedings, and really what came out of the various themes that were introduced by General Mkhwanazi was that interference, either by the top brass in SAPS, by political figures, by criminal syndicates, even journalists were named in his address over the last 3 days. What really stood out for you with regards to Mkhwanazi's testimony?
What stood up was the sequencing of his evidence. And also the second thing that stood out for me was the calmness, suggesting that he really had invested a lot of time in identifying the networks and creating linkages. And the third thing that stood out for me is calling out the key players in the organized crime network that we have seen. I am using the word organized crime advisedly and networks advisedly, because those are suspects who must be put before a court of law, so that Nhlanhla's evidence must be tested by the court of law. And what stood out yesterday was, for me, was a moment when I saw him dropping the names, tearing people's dresses and tearing people's pair of pants. For him, bringing in the element of political interference and actually proving it or substantiating it with the names of people like former Minister Bekicele, former Minister Nathi Mthethwa, amongst others, including Bomme Ria Pierre, and subsequently what led Nhlanhla to be sent home to stay there for 12 months. This suggests to both you and I, Katlego, that he is determined to stand his ground. He is also determined to ensure that he exposes the rot further, like he did, which made me laugh, like he did with another Mkhwanazi in Ekurhuleni, Julius Mkhwanazi, Major General Julius Mkhwanazi, who he identified as one of the people in the network, in the syndicate, who was able to register 5 or so cars of Mr. Ket Matala's vehicles as if they belong to the municipality, and fitting them with blue lights, which is actually a criminal offense, and many others. He threw another Mkhwanazi under the bus. So this is very serious. I am also expecting, based on what happened in the last 3 days, I am expecting a serious focus on Monday. Serious focus on Minister Mkhunu, because Katlego, you can tell he's been giving us a blow-by-blow of the process, so that when it culminates in on the focus around Minister Mkhunu, he should have tied all, connected all the dots, as it were.
And I mean, speaking of that, when tying all the dots now to Minister Mkhunu, you also mentioned that he takes it far back with the Richard Mdluli's, former Minister Nathi Mthethwa, former Minister Bekicele. Does this sort of create an impression that this rot has really been in existence for quite some time, and many of it could have been an inheritance on Minister Mkhunu?
Yes, ma'am. Positive answer. Let me substantiate in a few seconds. In 2012, when he was the acting national commissioner, that is General Mkhwanazi, we went down to the budget vote speech in Parliament, and the budget vote speech went through, and it was gala dinner. During the gala dinner, he was giving a speech, and as people were dining, and you can imagine that sound made by the knives and the forks and on the plates. And he said, as in his speech, he said, "I am a police officer. I will arrest any politician who commits crime and who does wrong things." Katlego, I never in my life got such a fright. You know, I just got a knock, a fear, because the sound of the cutlery went dead, like there was no one in that room. And I said to myself, this gentleman, this police officer is very brave. So I can tell from the experiences that he encountered, like he spoke of that era of General Richard Mdluli and the prosecutors that he mentioned yesterday, Montate Lawrence Mkhwebi, and all others in that process. So he knows what has been going on. And he concluded by saying he is no longer prepared to stand by and fold his arms whilst the country is burning from a criminal takeover by the syndicate, when he explained why he was wearing camouflage gear.
And I think what was also interesting, Dr. Mashaile, was the fact that he was not just about creating the hype around the big names, but he also emphasized on what a lot of South Africans experience on a daily. He mentioned Zonkizizwe police station in the Catharus area, and how there were cars that had been hijacked. The car was locked and there were no keys. They then called the police station, but within an hour, one of the police was already driving around with that car. He also spoke about Eden Park SAPS, where they had recovered another vehicle that had been stolen, but it took 7 hours for the police to respond to such a call. And another police station, the Thokoza SAPS, where they found mandrax. But to date, there hasn't been a case that's been opened. Nobody knows about where those drugs are currently, and the suspect has now been released. So him really detailing how the rot has now infiltrated at the coalface of service delivery, where people are experiencing policemen at that level.
Yes, Kati. He actually spoke the language. He spoke on behalf of the people living in those policing precincts, in those policing areas, in the sectors as well as the subsectors where crime happens in the street. It was as if he's just an ordinary citizen who has experienced a raw deal from a policing precinct, a police station, going to the CSC, the Community Service Center, where when you walk in and you want to open a case for your cell phone that was robbed of you or from you, and you are told by the person behind the counter in the CSC that you must go and look for the insurance form so that you can claim that cell phone from the insurance, suggesting that they will not open the case or they don't know how to open the case. And these frustrations that even some of us were exposed to, he spoke about real things, and he further took it from that level to the third level of detail, where he mentioned the names of the people who actually block a service delivery and by extension deny people justice, and by extension and then defeating the end of justice through their conduct, that of not taking South Africans seriously. I am definitely sure that he is understanding the chapter 12 of the National Development Plan that says by 2030, the people of this country should be feeling safe, and they should actually be safe. These are the steps that he has taken, are the steps that will ensure that a few years from now on, this country is safe and secure. There are many other things that would crop out of the woodwork from a cross-examination point of view. Let's see how he responds to that when he gets called at the closure of the process.
And I mean, talking about that safety and South Africans feeling safe and us reaching some of those 2030 goals, he mentioned a number of MPs in Parliament. I mean, he mentioned Mr. Adams, and he also mentioned the DA's Kola Barnard, with regards to them having access to classified information and recklessly handling such information. How should South Africans feel about such occurrences? I mean, he also went as far as including IDEC and some of the work that they did, that he alleges, in terms of blocking and stopping, and just all this that's been created in terms of how South Africans are actually supposed to be feeling safe when those at the helm who are trusted with either information or the work that they should be doing to be protecting the very South Africans.
From an intelligence point of view, he is correct to say the parliamentarians, when they have intelligence, they sign an oath of secrecy. When they have intelligence, they are not supposed to share it with the public. And I have listened to some of them respond to say all what they were talking about was in the public domain. Now, the question that you and I ask ourselves, because you sit in on that committee that deals with intelligence, your Joint Standing Committee on Intelligence, you would be expected not to comment, because obviously when you comment in that area, your word carries power. And also when you look at Mr. Adams and the process that Nhlanhla mapped out in terms of opening cases at Cape Town Central, and then 2 days later, a few days later in Gauteng. In his understanding, in his mind, he is sharing with us what should not be happening from a process point of view, so that you don't overload and you don't overburden the system by creating pressure that so that there should be favorable investigations, because one, you are a member of parliament, two, you don't believe in what he's saying, three, many of these things that we have mentioned would then be to your advantage because of the position that you hold. What he was raising was that parliament, those parliamentarians abused the advantage that they have to create pressure on the system. Whether he is right or he is not right, it is not for me to judge. It is for the court of law, after this process has been wrapped, for the court of law to say, yes, Mr. Adams, and yes, Mama Kola Barnard, this was not your space, and therefore you have violated the Criminal Procedure Act.
I mean, at the helm and at the heart of many of those discussions was, of course, that political killings task team that was disbanded by Minister Mkhwanazi earlier this year. And then all that has been unraveled with regards to what he mentions as successes of that political killings task team, and then it having been disbanded. Do you think this commission is going to bring hope to South Africans, especially with all the information that is being put out there? Or is it going to be just one of those commissions, such as the Zondo Commission, where we are hearing certain things of what's happening in the country, but not enough action is taken in order to fix this alleged rot?
Two things, Katla. One, what came out of this commission cannot be swept under the carpet. Two, this is a make or break commission. When this commission fails, our hopes will fade with it permanently into the sunset. When this commission is successful in terms of its findings and then recommends to the president and also refers some of the cases or most of the criminal activities highlighted to law enforcement agencies, there is going to be a scurrying for cover by those involved. Some of them are in the NPA, some of them are in the law enforcement agencies, some of them are in parliament. Now, what does that suggest to both you and I, Katlego, is that the investigators who might be holding on to the Zondo Commission dockets will then have to be changed, because some of them might be implicated in what he has brought to the fore. By extension, meaning third or fourth level investigation detail. And when you change, when you reconfigure Katlego, that dynamic, you end up with a situation where the new investigators who will be handling the docket of the Zondo Commission matters will then have to do what needs to be done so that another Mkhwanazi should not expose them and give them a hiding. So we are hoping, praying, and from a fact point of view, how do you sweep this commission's findings under the carpet?